Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. Tonight, the history you weren't taught in schools, the amazing footage of the extremes in American history. Why do you need to know about the extremes? Because they are close to power, and it's a lot of power. The power that people don't really even see, and the extremists that they've never ever learned about in school. If we don't know them, we will be destined to repeat our own spooky history. Coming up for the full hour, don't miss a second. Hello, America. Tonight is a really important show. I want you to DVR this. Press record right now. Then I want you to pass it on to a friend. People are waking up, but there aren't enough people that are really aware of what's happening in America. A lot of people are in denial on what's happening in America. And if we are in denial, if we say, oh, it can never happen here, it will. If we prepare for the worst and hope for the best, if we're vigilant, it won't ever happen here. But we're up against a mighty big wall because the economy, no matter what anybody tells you, we're at the beginning of this, not at the end. There are not enough people in Congress that I think even understand it, or not enough in Congress that, or the Senate that are even willing to stand up and fight for it. For every Michelle Bachmann, there are at least 10 big government progressives. So it's up to you. And I know you've already done so much. You know that tomorrow is the one-year anniversary of the 9/12 Project. It was a year ago tomorrow. We have a special on that tomorrow night. Year ago tomorrow that I said, you're not alone. Wow, do you know that now? You're the only thing that's standing in the way of health care and the destructive powers here in America. There's a lot more work to do, however. Progressives aren't quitting. They are turning on the heat. And I know you're busy. You have a life to live. I know the last thing you want to do after you come home, make dinner, clean the dishes, put the kids to bed, pick up the house, pick up all their toys, sit down, talk to your husband or your wife about whatever it is that's gone on during the day. Last thing you want to do is pick up a book and read about Woodrow Wilson. I hate this guy. Or FDR. I mean, I know. That's my life. But you're going to have to. You're going to have to learn history and be interested in history, not only the last 100 years, but also the beginning of our country. We need to look back and learn, because if we don't, we are going to repeat the exact same mistakes from the past. And boy, the past is playing, it's amazing how much the past is playing, happening right now. Look at this. Back in the 1930s, 1933, I think it was, the American economy was in a crisis. This is just the beginning. Unemployment peaked 1933 at 24%. Unemployment today is 9.7. We both had a crash. We had a crash in 33. We had a crash today. Europe, because of the crash and the unemployment, fear and hunger, Europe and the global economy was completely unstable, and so were the citizens. Look at this. This is Kristallnacht. This is over in Europe. Here's your G20. The president declares that the government is the only one that can save it. Watch first 1930s.
In our efforts for recovery, we have avoided on the one hand the theory that business should and must be taken over into an all-embracing government. We have avoided on the other hand the equally untenable theory that it is an interference with liberty to offer reasonable help when private enterprise is in need.
Only government can break the cycle that are crippling our economy.
Okay, got it? Now, both times, national debt piled on like unknown ever before. National debt, $22 billion in 1933. That was historic levels. Today, $12.5 trillion. Big government entitlement programs are jammed through. Do you know that when FDR took office, there may have been one the year before he took office, but there were no entitlement programs. None. Then the WPA and everything else. They launched this. We've just launched this. History's repeating it. It's just going over and over and over again. We're repeating the same experiences and the same mistakes that allowed the Depression to turn into the Great Depression, where the rest of the world, it was just a depression. But these things made it the Great Depression. The economic misery that is coming our way is only half the danger, and that's where I want to go tonight. Most people will dread economic recessions and depressions, but some people don't dread them. Some people are a little more opportunistic. They view this as their big chance, a window of opportunity to seize power, to fundamentally transform things. They don't see it as, oh my gosh, we're struggling. They see this as, now is our time. It's the extremes of our society, the radical ends of the political spectrum on both the left and the right. And let me explain this. What I'm talking about here, and Harry, if you can pull out, I want to show the chalkboard. The left and the right, the European left and right, because that's really the game we're playing now. We're playing the European game. I showed you this the other day. You ever heard anybody say we're on the wrong track? It's true. Back before the Enlightenment and the American Revolution, Europe was the model, and we had kings. So there were kings and rulers, lords and ladies, the landowners, and then there were the serfs, everybody else, people like you and me. There were the rulers and everybody else. Only the rulers made the decisions. This was the track that Europe was on. But then the Age of Enlightenment came, 1776, and people said, wait a minute, everybody's the same. You're not born into being a ruler. We're all the same. We all have an equal opportunity. We're born equal. We have an equal opportunity to control our own lives. So we went up here. We didn't build on this track. We got off that track, and we built freedom. But then the 1900s happened. We started being bent back towards this by the progressive era. But look what happened. While we were building freedom, Godwin in 1793 over in England, he said the rights of the collective. That planted dangerous seeds over in England that ended up in the guillotines in France. It then led to Marx in 1850. Nietzsche, God is dead, 1880s, which led to fascism, Mussolini and Hitler. This is this rail, the right track of the rail. The left became Stalin and Lenin, communists. Those are the two rails in Europe, left and right. So when we say fascist on one side, communist on the other, that's because we're on a European track. Freedom is anarchy, no government whatsoever. And on this rail, it's limited government. That's what keeps us right in the center. Just enough government to hold us together. We don't want to go too far, getting too close to a bigger government, and we don't want to slide into anarchy. They don't want to slide into Hitler or Stalin. You see the difference? In Europe, it's big government on both sides. That's why we're here now. FDR, what we're doing now, it's led us back into here, where we're looking at Chavez and North Korea and Cuba and China today. China is huge government. Russia and Putin, it's fascism. During normal times, kooks that say this kind of stuff is good, brushed aside. But history shows us time and time again, if you add two elements, fear and hunger, oh, people will listen to anybody who says, I have the answer. I'm going to give you an example. When I say anybody, I mean anybody. Here's an example. Recognize these two cats? One's good, one's incredibly evil. But they have one thing in common. If you're in a system of crisis where there is fear and hunger, both have the ability to look at you and say, I'll save you. I have the answer. I know why this is happening to you. Come, follow me. And when you're hungry and afraid, it's not as easy to tell the difference between these two. But there is a huge difference. But you have to know what those differences are now before you're hungry and afraid. In the 1930s and today, two people say they have the answer. In the 1930s, it was this guy. Today, it's this guy. FDR and Barack Obama. This guy said, happy days are here again. This one's just said, the worst is behind us. America is extremely fragile right now. When FDR took office, Do you know how many entitlement programs there were